Hello there, and welcome to Sleepy Answers. Tonight, we're drifting into one of the most mysterious territories of human experience. A place where logic bends, where impossible things feel perfectly natural, and where you spend roughly 6 years of your life if you live to be 70. We're exploring the realm of dreams. Every single night, as darkness settles and your body surrenders to rest, something extraordinary happens inside your skull. Your conscious mind fades, your muscles relax, and then, without warning, an entire universe springs to life behind your closed eyelids. You might find yourself flying over cities that never existed, having conversations with people long gone, or solving problems in ways that would seem absurd in daylight. You experience joy, terror, confusion, and wonder, all while lying perfectly still in your bed. Dreams are one of the most universal human experiences, yet they remain wrapped in layers of mystery. Ancient civilizations believed them to be messages from gods or glimpses into other realms. Modern science has peeled back some of these veils, revealing intricate neural mechanisms and biochemical cascades. But even with all our advanced technology and research, we still cannot fully explain why we dream or what purpose these nightly adventures truly serve. Before we drift deeper into this exploration, I want to invite you to join our community. If you find yourself drawn to these quiet journeys through science and wonder, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Your support helps other curious minds find their way here, one peaceful evening at a time. And if you have thoughts about your own dreams or questions about what we'll explore tonight, I'd love to hear them in the comments below. But for now, there's nothing you need to do except settle in. Let your breathing slow. Allow your muscles to soften. Let the day's demands fade into the background. Tonight, we're going to follow the pathway your brain travels each evening as it constructs these remarkable inner worlds. We'll explore which regions light up and which go dark, what chemicals flood your neurons, and why evolution might have equipped us with this strange ability to hallucinate convincingly every single night. The question of why we dream has occupied philosophers, poets, and scientists for thousands of years. Aristotle pondered whether dreams revealed hidden truths. Freud believed they were windows into our unconscious desires. Today, neuroscientists scan sleeping brains with functional magnetic resonance imaging machines, measure electrical patterns with electroencephalograms, and wake volunteers at precise moments to capture dream reports while memories are still fresh. Through this work, a picture has begun to emerge, though it remains incomplete and beautifully mysterious. What we do know is that dreaming is not a simple or singular phenomenon. It's a complex interplay of memory systems, emotional processing, sensory simulation, and narrative construction. It involves nearly every region of your brain working in unusual configurations, with some areas becoming extraordinarily active while others fall almost silent. The chemicals bathing your neurons shift dramatically from waking consciousness, creating an internal environment where the impossible becomes plausible and the rational mind surrenders to a more fluid form of experience. As we move through this exploration, you'll discover that your dreams may be doing far more than you realize. They might be sorting through the day's memories, deciding what to keep and what to discard. They could be processing difficult emotions in a safe, symbolic space, They may be running threat simulations, preparing you for dangers you might face. Or they might be preventing other sensory systems from taking over territory in your brain that belongs to vision. The truth is likely that dreams serve multiple purposes simultaneously, and that different dreams might emphasize different functions. So let's begin this gentle descent into the science of sleep and the mystery of dreams. Let your curiosity guide you, but don't strain to remember every detail. This is not a test. This is an invitation to wonder, to see your own nightly experiences through a new lens, and to appreciate the remarkable capabilities hidden within your sleeping mind. The architecture of sleep. To understand dreams, we must first understand the landscape they emerge from. Sleep is not a single uniform state. It's a carefully choreographed journey through distinct stages, each with its own brainwave patterns, muscle activity, and mental experiences. Your brain cycles through these stages multiple times each night, like waves rolling onto a shore, with each wave carrying you deeper and then drawing you back toward the surface of consciousness. When you first lie down and close your eyes, you enter a transitional state called Stage 1, or N1 sleep. This is the borderland between waking and sleeping, lasting only a few minutes. Your brain waves slow from the alert beta waves of waking consciousness to the more relaxed alpha waves, and then begin showing theta wave activity. Your muscles remain somewhat tense, though they start to relax. You might experience what's called hypnagogic imagery, brief flashes of dreams or hallucinations that feel vivid but fragmentary. People sometimes report the sensation of falling and jerking awake during this phase, a phenomenon called a hypnic jerk. You're easily awakened during this stage, and if someone asks whether you were asleep, you might not be entirely sure. Soon, you slip into Stage 2, or N2 sleep. This is a deeper level of sleep where you spend the majority of your night accounting for roughly 45 to 55% of total sleep time in adults. Your body temperature begins to drop. Your heart rate slows. Your brain waves show a distinctive pattern called sleep spindles, which are brief bursts of brain activity that appear as rapid oscillations on an electroencephalogram. These spindles are thought to play a crucial role in memory consolidation, helping to transfer information from short-term storage in the hippocampus to long-term storage in the cortex. You also see K-complexes, which are large, slow brain waves that may help suppress cortical arousal and keep you asleep despite environmental disturbances. During this stage, you become less aware of your surroundings. It takes more effort to wake you up. Then comes the deepest valley of the night, Stage 3 or N3, often called slow wave sleep or deep sleep. This is the most restorative phase of sleep, when your brain produces large, slow delta waves that roll through your cortex like gentle swells on a calm ocean. Your muscles are completely relaxed. Your breathing becomes deep and regular. Your blood pressure drops. Growth hormone is released, supporting tissue repair and growth. If someone tries to wake you during this phase, you'll feel groggy and disoriented, struggling to return to consciousness. This is the sleep of exhaustion, the sleep you crave after long days, the sleep that leaves you feeling refreshed in the morning. Interestingly, you spend more time in deep sleep during the first half of the night, as if your brain prioritizes this restorative phase when you're most depleted. After traveling through these non-REM stages, something remarkable happens. About 90 minutes after you first fell asleep, your brain shifts into a completely different state called REM sleep, named for the rapid eye movements that occurred during this phase. Suddenly, your brain becomes almost as active as it is when you're awake. Your eyes dart back and forth beneath closed lids, tracking scenes that exist only in your mind. Your brain waves shift from the slow delta waves of deep sleep to faster, more irregular patterns that resemble waking consciousness. Your heart rate increases and becomes more variable. Your breathing quickens and grows irregular. Blood flow to your brain increases dramatically. But here's where things get strange. While your brain becomes highly active, your body becomes paralyzed. A small region in your brainstem sends signals that effectively disconnect your motor cortex from your spinal cord, preventing you from acting out your dreams. This paralysis is crucial for your safety. Without it, you would physically move in response to dream content, potentially injuring yourself or others. This disconnect between an active mind and a still body is one of the most striking features of REM sleep. REM sleep is when most vivid dreaming occurs. The dreams of REM sleep tend to be longer, more bizarre, more emotional, and more visually detailed than dreams from other stages. They often have complex narratives, even if the logic connecting scenes is strange or impossible. You're more likely to remember these dreams if you wake during or shortly after a REM period. Throughout the night, you cycle through these stages in a repeating pattern, but the pattern changes as the night progresses. The first cycle might include 20 to 30 minutes of deep, slow-wave sleep and only 5 to 10 minutes of REM. But with each subsequent cycle, you spend less time in deep sleep and more time in REM. By the morning, you might have REM periods lasting 30 to 60 minutes, punctuated by brief returns to lighter sleep stages. This is why your most memorable and elaborate dreams often occur in the hours just before you wake up. The entire architecture of sleep appears carefully designed, suggesting that each stage serves important functions. The slow waves of deep sleep seem particularly important for physical restoration and certain types of memory consolidation. REM sleep, with its heightened brain activity and paralyzed body, appears crucial for emotional processing, creative problem-solving, and perhaps maintaining the integrity of certain neural systems. But the full picture of why we cycle through these stages in this particular pattern remains a subject of active research and ongoing debate. What's fascinating is that this architecture is not fixed across the lifespan. Newborn babies spend about 50% of their sleep time in REM, cycling through sleep stages every 50 minutes rather than every 90. As we age, we spend less time in REM and less time in deep, slow-wave sleep. By the time we reach our 60s and 70s, we might spend only 15 to 20% of the night in REM, and our deep sleep may nearly disappear. This changing pattern suggests that REM sleep serves particularly important functions during periods of rapid brain development, when neural connections are being formed and refined at an extraordinary rate. The sleep cycle is not merely a passive resting state. It's an active, organized process that your brain carefully orchestrates, adjusting neurotransmitter levels, modulating different brain regions, and creating the conditions necessary for the strange theater of dreams to unfold. And within this architecture, especially during those REM periods when your eyes dance beneath closed lids and your brain blazes with activity, dreams emerge like plays staged in a private theater, where you are simultaneously the audience, the actors, and sometimes the confused director, trying to make sense of a script written in a language you almost remember. Inside the dreaming brain. If you could watch your brain during a vivid dream, you would witness a remarkable transformation. Certain regions would glow with activity on a brain scan, lit up like cities at night, while others would dim almost to darkness. The pattern of activation during REM sleep dreaming is so distinctive that neuroscientists can sometimes predict whether someone is dreaming based solely on their brain activity. Let's start with the visual cortex, located at the back of your brain in the occipital lobe. During waking hours, this region processes information streaming in from your eyes, transforming light into the rich visual experience of the world around you. But during REM sleep dreaming, something extraordinary occurs. Even though your eyes are closed and no light is entering, the visual cortex becomes intensely active. In fact, brain imaging studies show that blood flow to visual processing areas during REM sleep can equal or exceed the levels seen during waking vision. Your brain is generating visual experiences entirely from within, creating sights without any external input whatsoever. This internal activation of the visual cortex is remarkably precise. When researchers use advanced brain imaging techniques to decode patterns of neural activity, they can sometimes predict what categories of objects or scenes a person is dreaming about based on the specific patterns lighting up in their visual cortex. If you're dreaming about faces, certain face processing regions show characteristic activity. If you're dreaming about landscapes or buildings, different spatial processing areas activate. The dreaming brain uses the same neural machinery for creating dream imagery that it uses for processing real visual information, which helps explain why dreams feel so convincingly real while you're experiencing them. Moving forward from the visual cortex, we encounter regions involved in spatial navigation and memory. The hippocampus, that seahorse-shaped structure deep within your temporal lobes, remains quite active during REM sleep. This is the same region crucial for forming new memories and for spatial navigation when you're awake. During sleep, particularly during REM periods, the hippocampus appears to replay patterns of activity from your waking experiences. If you spent the day navigating a new city, learning a new skill, or having emotionally significant experiences, your hippocampus may reactivate those memory traces during sleep, potentially strengthening them and integrating them with existing knowledge. Some researchers believe this replay during dreams is one way your brain consolidates memories, deciding what's important enough to keep and how new experiences should be woven into your existing understanding of the world. Adjacent to the hippocampus sits the amygdala, an almond-shaped structure that serves as your brain's emotional processing center. During REM sleep, the amygdala doesn't just remain active, it often becomes more active than during waking hours. This heightened activity in emotional processing regions helps explain why dreams are often so emotionally intense. Whether you're experiencing dream anxiety, joy, fear, or grief, these feelings can be as powerful or more powerful than their waking equivalents. The amygdala's involvement in dreaming suggests that dreams play an important role in processing and regulating emotions, allowing you to work through feelings in a safe, simulated environment where real-world consequences don't exist. The anterior cingulate cortex and medial prefrontal cortex, regions involved in emotional memory and social cognition, also show increased activity during REM sleep. These areas help you understand emotional context, navigate social situations, and form emotional memories. Their activation during dreams may contribute to the often social nature of dream content and the emotional learning that can occur during sleep. But perhaps the most striking feature of the dreaming brain is what goes quiet. The dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, located at the front of your brain just behind your forehead, shows dramatically reduced activity during normal REM sleep dreaming. This is one of the most important regions for logical thinking, planning, working memory, and critical evaluation. It's the part of your brain that notices inconsistencies, questions impossibilities, and maintains a coherent sense of self and time. When you're awake, this region acts like an internal editor, constantly checking whether things make sense and whether your thoughts align with reality. During dreams, this editor goes offline. With the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex largely deactivated, you lose the ability to think critically about your experience. This explains one of the most curious features of normal dreaming. While you're in a dream, even the most bizarre events seem perfectly normal. You might sprout wings and fly, encounter people who died years ago, or watch objects transform into completely different things. And in the moment, none of this strikes you as odd. You accept the impossible as real because the part of your brain responsible for reality testing has temporarily shut down. Only when you wake and your prefrontal cortex comes back online do you recognize how strange your dreams actually were. The deactivation of certain prefrontal regions during dreaming also affects your sense of time and your ability to form new episodic memories. You might experience a dream that seems to last for hours, covering elaborate adventures. Yet in reality, only minutes have passed. And when you wake, dreams begin fading immediately, sometimes vanishing within seconds unless you make a conscious effort to recall them. This rapid forgetting is puzzling, especially since the hippocampus, which is crucial for memory formation, remains active during REM sleep. The answer may lie in the specific pattern of neurochemicals present during dreaming. During REM sleep, your brain's chemical environment shifts dramatically from waking consciousness. Norepinephrine, a neurotransmitter associated with attention and memory consolidation, drops to nearly undetectable levels. This decrease may contribute to the difficulty of forming stable memories of dreams. At the same time, acetylcholine levels surge. Acetylcholine is involved in the transition to REM sleep and in generating the cortical activation characteristic of dreaming. It promotes activity in sensory processing areas and supports the vivid, hallucinatory quality of dreams. Serotonin and norepinephrine, which help maintain focused, linear thinking during wakefulness, are largely absent during REM sleep. This absence may contribute to the loose associations and bizarre juxtapositions common in dreams. Without these neurotransmitters moderating neural activity, your thoughts can flow in unexpected directions, connecting ideas that would never link during waking thought. This chemical state may be precisely what allows for the creative insights and unusual problem-solving that sometimes emerge from dreams. The parietal cortex, particularly regions involved in self-awareness and distinguishing self from other, shows reduced activity during normal dreaming. This may explain why dreamers often lack insight into their true state, failing to recognize their dreaming. It might also contribute to the sometimes fluid sense of identity in dreams, where you might observe yourself from outside your body or experience being different people in the same dream. Yet, despite the deactivation of certain regions, the dreaming brain remains far from quiet. Studies using functional magnetic resonance imaging have revealed that during REM sleep, overall brain metabolism approaches waking levels. Your brain consumes nearly as much glucose and oxygen while dreaming as it does while you're alert and engaged in complex tasks. This high level of metabolic activity underscores that dreaming is not a passive or restful state for the brain, but an active process requiring substantial energy and coordination across multiple neural systems. The pattern of activation during dreams suggests that dreaming involves a complex interplay between bottom-up processes, driven by brainstem activation of sensory and emotional systems, and top-down processes, driven by cortical regions attempting to create coherent narratives from this internally generated activity. Your brain is essentially hallucinating, but doing so in a structured way that draws on your memories, concerns, knowledge, and emotional preoccupations. Different dreams may involve slightly different patterns of brain activation. Anxiety dreams might show greater amygdala activation. Dreams involving complex problem-solving might engage more prefrontal regions than typical dreams. Dreams focused on social interactions might preferentially activate regions involved in theory of mind and social cognition. The dreaming brain is not a single uniform state, but a flexible system capable of creating widely varying experiences depending on which circuits are most active and how they're interacting. What emerges from this neuroscience is a picture of dreams as complex, internally generated simulations, created by a brain that has temporarily unplugged from external reality, but remains intensely active. Your sleeping brain takes fragments of memory, emotion, and sensation, then weaves them into experiences that feel utterly real, all while the logical mind that might question these impossibilities rests quietly, allowing the strange theater to unfold without interruption. The leading theories of why we dream. Given the universal nature of dreaming and the substantial energy your brain devotes to it, researchers have long suspected that dreams must serve important functions. Yet, despite decades of investigation, there is still no scientific consensus on why we dream. Multiple theories have been proposed, each supported by certain evidence, and it's quite possible that dreams serve several purposes simultaneously. Let's explore the leading explanations for why your brain creates these nightly adventures. One of the most widely supported theories suggests that dreams play a crucial role in memory consolidation, the process by which experiences and information transition from temporary storage to more permanent forms. Throughout your waking hours, your brain accumulates vast amounts of information. Conversations, observations, new skills, emotional experiences, and countless sensory impressions pour into your neural systems. But not all of this information is equally important. Your brain needs a way to sort through the day's accumulation, strengthening memories that matter and allowing less important details to fade. Sleep, particularly REM sleep, appears ideally suited for this task. During REM periods, the hippocampus, which temporarily stores new memories, shows reactivation of patterns that were active during learning. It's as if your brain is replaying experiences, reviewing what happened, and gradually transferring important memories to the cortex for long-term storage. Many studies have demonstrated that sleep, especially REM-rich sleep, improves memory retention. Students who study material and then sleep perform better on tests than those who stay awake. People learning new motor skills show improvement after a night's sleep. The complex sequences of brain activity during sleep appear to support the reorganization and stabilization of memories. But where do dreams fit into this process? Some researchers propose that dreams are the conscious experience of memory consolidation occurring in the background. When your hippocampus replays memories and your cortex processes them, you might experience fragments of these memories as dream content. This would explain why dreams often incorporate elements from recent experiences, why studying or thinking intensely about something makes it more likely to appear in dreams, and why certain skills improve after dreaming about them. Your dream of playing piano might reflect your brain rehearsing and strengthening the neural patterns associated with the skill you practiced during the day. However, memory consolidation theory faces some challenges. Many dreams don't seem to reflect recent memories at all. They combine elements from different times in your life, include wholly invented scenarios, or focus on concerns and emotions rather than specific experiences you're trying to remember. Also, people taking certain antidepressants that nearly eliminate REM sleep don't show obvious memory impairments, suggesting REM sleep and dreaming may not be absolutely essential for memory formation. Perhaps memory consolidation is one function among several, or perhaps different types of memories are consolidated during different sleep stages. A second prominent theory focuses on emotional processing and regulation. According to this view, dreams provide a safe space for your brain to work through emotions, particularly difficult or unresolved feelings. During REM sleep, the amygdala and other emotional processing centers are highly active, while the prefrontal cortex, which normally moderates emotional responses, is relatively quiet. This combination might allow you to experience and process emotions more intensely and with less rational constraint than during waking hours. The neurochemical environment of REM sleep supports this theory. The near absence of norepinephrine during REM creates conditions where emotional memories can be reactivated and processed without the physiological stress response that would occur during waking. It's as if your brain can revisit difficult experiences and feelings in a safe mode, where you can explore them without the same level of distress or arousal. This process might help resolve emotional conflicts, reduce the emotional charge of traumatic memories, and maintain psychological well-being. Supporting this theory, research shows that REM sleep deprivation leads to increased emotional reactivity and difficulty regulating emotions. People who don't get adequate REM sleep often report feeling more irritable, anxious, or emotionally volatile. Conversely, a good night's sleep, rich in REM periods, helps people handle stress better and maintain emotional equilibrium. Dreams with strong emotional content may be particularly important for this regulatory function, allowing you to rehearse responses to challenging situations or work through complex feelings in a symbolic framework. Dreams after traumatic experiences provide interesting evidence for the emotional processing theory. People who experience trauma often have nightmares in which they relive or symbolically revisit the traumatic event. While distressing, these nightmares might represent the brain's attempt to process and integrate the experience, gradually reducing its emotional power. When this process works well, the nightmares eventually fade. When it doesn't, as in post-traumatic stress disorder, the nightmares persist, suggesting a failure of the normal emotional processing function of dreams. A third fascinating theory, called the threat simulation hypothesis, proposes that dreams evolved as a sort of virtual reality training system for dealing with dangers. According to this evolutionary perspective, dreams allow you to rehearse threatening scenarios in a safe environment where there are no real consequences. By simulating encounters with predators, aggressive rivals, natural disasters, or social threats, your dreaming brain might be preparing you to respond more effectively if you face similar dangers while awake. Supporting this idea, dreams across cultures frequently feature threatening content. Being chased, falling, being attacked, or facing dangerous animals are among the most common dream themes worldwide. Children's dreams are particularly rich in threat content, which might reflect the vulnerability of childhood and the developmental importance of learning to recognize and respond to danger. The theory suggests that individuals whose dreams effectively simulated threats would have had survival advantages over those whose dreams didn't, leading natural selection to favor neural mechanisms supporting threat-related dreaming. However, modern dreams include many threats that weren't present in our evolutionary past. People dream about missing exams, being late to important meetings, or having technical failures during presentations. These contemporary anxieties might represent the same threat simulation system responding to modern forms of social and psychological danger. The underlying mechanism evolved to handle physical threats, but has been co-opted to address the social and cognitive challenges of complex human societies. Critics point out that many dreams don't contain obvious threats, and even threatening dreams don't always lead to productive problem-solving or improved real-world responses. Also, if threat simulation were the primary function of dreaming, we might expect dreams to become less frequent or intense once we reach adulthood and have accumulated experience with various dangers. But this doesn't appear to be the case. Still, threat simulation might be one among several functions that dreams serve. A very different theory, called the activation synthesis hypothesis, suggests that dreams don't serve any particular function at all. Instead, they're simply the brain's attempt to make sense of random neural activity. According to this view, during REM sleep, the brainstem sends random bursts of electrical activity to the cortex. The higher brain regions, which are accustomed to interpreting sensory input and creating coherent narratives, try to synthesize these random signals into something meaningful. Dreams, in this account, are the stories your brain weaves from noise, the sense it creates from random firing patterns that don't actually mean anything. This theory explains why dreams are often so bizarre and illogical. If the underlying neural activity is random, then the cortex is essentially trying to create a coherent story from incoherent signals, leading to the strange juxtapositions and impossible scenarios characteristic of dreams. The theory also aligns with the observation that dream content can sometimes be influenced by external stimuli. If a smoke alarm goes off during REM sleep, you might dream about fire or sirens, as your brain incorporates the external stimulus into its ongoing synthesis of random internal activity. However, the activation synthesis theory has been challenged by more recent findings showing that REM sleep brain activity is not truly random. Specific regions activate in predictable patterns. Neurotransmitter systems change in systematic ways, and the neural activity during REM shows organization rather than chaos. Also, the fact that dream content reflects personal concerns, memories, and emotional preoccupations suggests that dreams are drawing on meaningful information rather than just making the best of random noise. Most contemporary neuroscientists view the activation synthesis theory as too reductive, though it may capture part of the truth about how dreams are constructed. A more recent theory, called defensive activation theory, focuses specifically on the visual nature of most dreams. This theory proposes that REM sleep and visual dreaming evolved to prevent the visual cortex from being taken over by other sensory systems during the long hours of darkness when vision is not being used. In a competitive neural environment where different brain regions vie for territory, areas that aren't actively used risk being repurposed by neighbors. By generating internal visual activity during sleep, dreams keep the visual cortex engaged and prevent other senses from encroaching on its neural real estate. This theory makes specific predictions that have found support in research. Species with more flexible, adaptable brains should need more REM sleep to defend their visual systems. And indeed, animals with greater neuroplasticity tend to have more REM sleep. Human infants, whose brains are extremely plastic and still developing, spend about half their sleep time in REM, while adults, whose brains are less flexible, spend only about 20 to 25% of sleep in REM. Also, the theory explains why dreams are predominantly visual rather than focused on other senses. During sleep, you lose access to visual input because your eyes are closed and it's dark, but you still have access to sound, touch, and other senses. Only vision needs defending, so only vision is strongly activated during dreams. Critics note that even blind individuals who have never had vision still experience REM sleep, suggesting that defending the visual cortex cannot be the only function of REM. However, evolutionary remnants often persist even after their original function becomes less relevant. The defensive activation theory might explain one important aspect of why we dream, even if it doesn't account for all the features of dreaming. Yet another perspective, sometimes called the reverse learning or unlearning hypothesis, suggests that dreams help the brain get rid of unwanted neural connections and spurious associations. According to this view, your neural networks naturally accumulate lots of weak, random connections as you learn and experience the world. These unnecessary connections are like clutters in an information system, degrading performance by introducing noise and irrelevant associations. Dreams, particularly the random-seeming activation patterns of REM sleep, might help identify and weaken these parasitic connections, pruning the neural network to improve its efficiency and prevent problems like obsessive thoughts or false pattern recognition. This theory views dreams as neural housekeeping, a maintenance routine that runs while you sleep to keep your cognitive systems operating smoothly. The bizarre, illogical nature of dreams would be a side effect of this pruning process, as random neural firing helps identify weak connections that should be eliminated. Like the activation synthesis hypothesis, this theory suggests dreams aren't primarily about meaning, but about neural maintenance. The truth about why we dream may be that multiple theories are partially correct. Dreams might simultaneously consolidate important memories, process emotions, simulate threats, defend neural territory, and prune unnecessary connections. Different aspects of dreams might serve different functions. The vivid visual imagery could be defending the visual cortex. The emotional intensity could be processing feelings. The incorporation of recent experiences could be consolidating memories. The bizarre scenarios could be either random synthesis or creative exploration of possibility. What's clear is that dreaming is a fundamental feature of human brain function, consistent across cultures and throughout the lifespan. The energy your brain devotes to it, the complex neural mechanisms supporting it, and its universal presence all suggest that dreaming serves important purposes, even if we haven't fully unraveled what those purposes are. Perhaps future research will reveal a unified theory that brings these different perspectives together, showing how they're all aspects of a single, elegant system. Or perhaps dreams are like the Swiss Army knife of brain functions, a multi-purpose tool that evolution has repurposed for several different uses, all of which contribute to the remarkable flexibility and resilience of the human mind. Dreams as emotional therapists. If you pay attention to your dreams over time, you might notice that they often focus on emotional themes. You might dream repeatedly about being unprepared for a test, about conflicts with people you care about losing something important, or about achievements and triumphs. These emotional threads running through your dreams point to what might be one of the most important functions of dreaming: emotional processing and regulation. Consider what happens during your waking hours emotionally. You experience frustrations, anxieties, joys, disappointments, fears, and moments of connection. Some of these feelings are processed and resolved in real time, but others linger. You might suppress certain emotions because it's not appropriate to express them in the moment. You might feel confused about complex social situations. You might carry unresolved tensions or unexamined feelings. All of this emotional material needs to be processed, integrated, and regulated. And your dreaming brain appears to serve as a kind of nighttime therapist, working through these feelings while you sleep. During REM sleep, when most vivid dreaming occurs, your brain's emotional processing centers operate in a unique configuration. The amygdala, which generates emotional responses and processes emotional memories, becomes highly active. The anterior cingulate cortex and medial prefrontal cortex, which help process emotional meaning and regulate emotional responses, also show increased activity. But crucially, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, which normally exerts rational control over emotional reactions, is largely offline. This creates a state where emotions can be experienced intensely, and explored freely without the constraints of logical analysis or social appropriateness. At the same time, the neurochemical environment of REM sleep changes in ways that support emotional processing. Norepinephrine, a stress-related neurotransmitter that activates the fight-or-flight response, drops to almost undetectable levels during REM sleep. This is significant because it means emotional memories can be reactivated and explored without triggering the full physiological stress response that would occur during waking. Your brain can revisit difficult experiences, process uncomfortable feelings, and work through emotional conflicts in a kind of safe mode, where you experience the emotions without the physical arousal that normally accompanies them. This combination of heightened emotional processing and reduced stress response might be exactly what's needed for healthy emotional regulation. By replaying emotional experiences during sleep in this modified state, your brain can gradually reduce the emotional charge associated with difficult memories and experiences. It's similar to exposure therapy used in treating anxiety and phobias, where repeated exposure to a feared stimulus in a safe context eventually reduces the fear response. Dreams might provide natural exposure therapy, allowing you to engage with difficult emotions in a safe, symbolic space. Research supports this emotional processing function of dreams. Studies have shown that people who are deprived of REM sleep show increased emotional reactivity and difficulty regulating their emotions the following day. They're more likely to interpret neutral faces as threatening, more likely to respond with irritability to minor frustrations, and show diminished ability to regulate negative emotions. After a good night's sleep, rich in REM, people typically show improved mood, better stress resilience, and enhanced emotional stability. The content of dreams often reflects emotional concerns. When you're stressed about an upcoming event, you're more likely to have anxiety dreams. When you're excited about something, you might dream about positive outcomes. When you're grieving, deceased loved ones may appear in your dreams. When you're navigating complex social situations, you might dream about social interactions and relationship dynamics. Your dreams don't necessarily replay these situations directly, but they often explore emotional themes related to your waking concerns. Interestingly, the emotional processing that occurs during dreams seems to involve a kind of abstraction or symbolization. Rather than simply replaying stressful events exactly as they occurred, dreams often present emotionally similar scenarios in different contexts. If you're anxious about a job interview, you might dream about being lost in an unfamiliar building or showing up unprepared to a performance. The surface content differs, but the emotional theme remains the same. This symbolic quality might be important for emotional processing, because it allows your brain to work with emotional patterns rather than getting stuck on specific details of individual events. Dreams, after significant emotional events, provide compelling evidence for this processing function. People going through divorce, grief, job loss, or other major life transitions often report intense, emotionally charged dreams related to these experiences. Initially, these dreams might be quite literal, replaying aspects of the actual events. But over time, as the emotional processing progresses, the dreams typically become more symbolic and less distressing. The intense emotional dreams following trauma or loss might represent the brain working overtime to process and integrate these difficult experiences. However, this system doesn't always work perfectly. In post-traumatic stress disorder, people often experience recurring nightmares that replay traumatic events without resolution. These nightmares suggest a failure of the normal emotional processing function of dreams. Instead of gradually reducing the emotional charge of the traumatic memory, the nightmares reinforce it, keeping the person trapped in a cycle of trauma reactivation. Understanding why dreams sometimes fail to process trauma effectively could lead to better treatments for PTSD and other trauma-related conditions. The emotional regulation function of dreams might extend beyond processing specific events to maintaining overall emotional balance. Dreams could serve as a pressure relief valve, allowing you to experience and discharge emotions that build up during waking hours. This might explain why people sometimes wake from dreams feeling emotionally lighter, even if they don't remember the dream content. The emotional work happened during sleep, leaving them with improved mood and emotional regulation even without conscious awareness of the processing that occurred. Dreams might also help you practice emotional responses and develop emotional intelligence. By simulating social situations and emotional challenges during sleep, dreams give you opportunities to explore different ways of feeling and responding without real-world consequences. You can experience anger, fear, joy, or sadness in response to dream scenarios, and your brain can learn from these simulated emotional experiences. Over time, this practice might make you more emotionally flexible and better able to navigate complex social and emotional situations while awake. The therapeutic potential of this emotional processing function is beginning to be explored clinically. Some therapists use dream content to help patients understand and work through emotional issues. Lucid dreaming, where the dreamer becomes aware they're dreaming and can sometimes influence dream content, is being investigated as a treatment for nightmares. By learning to recognize and potentially alter distressing dreams, people might be able to harness the emotional processing power of dreams more effectively. The picture that emerges is of dreams as an evolved emotional regulation system, a nighttime therapy session that your brain conducts without your conscious direction. By reactivating emotional memories in a modified neurochemical state, by exploring emotional themes through symbolic scenarios, and by experiencing emotions without full physiological stress responses, your dreaming brain works to maintain emotional balance, process difficult experiences, and keep you emotionally healthy. It's as if evolution equipped you with an internal counselor who meets with you every night, helping you work through the emotional complexity of being human. Memory, learning, and the dreaming mind. Beyond emotional processing, your sleeping brain appears deeply involved in another crucial function that organizing, consolidating, and integrating memories. The relationship between sleep, dreams, and memory is one of the most well-researched areas of sleep science, and the evidence suggests that what happens during your nights profoundly shapes what you remember and what you learn. Memory consolidation refers to the process by which temporary, fragile memories become more permanent and stable. When you first experience something new, the memory exists in a temporary form, vulnerable to interference and forgetting. For this temporary memory to become a lasting part of your knowledge, it must undergo consolidation, a process that appears to happen primarily during sleep. The hippocampus plays a central role in this process. Located deep within your temporal lobes, this seahorse-shaped structure serves as a temporary storage site for new memories. Throughout the day, experiences are rapidly encoded in the hippocampus, creating temporary memory traces. But the hippocampus has limited capacity and can't store everything permanently. During sleep, particularly during the slow wave sleep of deep non-REM and during REM sleep, the hippocampus begins replaying these memory traces. This replay is not random. Studies using neural recording techniques in animals have shown that specific patterns of neural firing from waking experiences are reactivated during sleep, often at faster speeds than they originally occurred. If a rat explored a maze during the day, the sequence of neurons that fired as it moved through the maze will fire again during sleep, sometimes in the same order but compressed in time. This replay appears to strengthen the memory and facilitate its transfer from the hippocampus to the cortex for long-term storage. In humans, this process manifests as dreams that incorporate elements from recent experiences. If you spend the day learning a new skill, solving a particular type of problem, or navigating a new environment, you're more likely to dream about related content that night. These dreams might not replay the experience exactly, but they include themes, settings, or activities related to what you learned. The incorporation of recent experiences into dreams suggests that dreams are, at least in part, the conscious experience of memory consolidation occurring beneath awareness. The effects of sleep on memory are striking. Students who study material and then sleep perform significantly better on tests than students who study and stay awake for an equivalent period. Musicians who practice a piece and then sleep show greater improvement than those who practice without sleep. People learning new motor skills, from typing to tennis, demonstrate better performance after sleep, especially if that sleep includes substantial REM periods. The phrase, "sleep on it," captures folk wisdom that neuroscience is now confirming. Sleep helps you learn and remember. Different types of memories may be consolidated during different sleep stages. Declarative memory, the fact and events you can consciously recall, appear to benefit particularly from slow-wave deep sleep. During this stage, the slow oscillations in cortical activity seem to coordinate the transfer of information from hippocampus to cortex, gradually integrating new memories with existing knowledge structures. Procedural memories, the how-to knowledge involved in skills and habits, appear more dependent on REM sleep. The intense neural activity during REM may support the strengthening of motor patterns and implicit learning. But memory consolidation during sleep is not just about strengthening everything you experienced during the day. It's also about forgetting. Your brain is selective about what gets consolidated and what gets allowed to fade. Emotional salience, relevance to your goals, repetition, and connection to existing knowledge all influence which memories are strengthened during sleep. Less important details, irrelevant information, and experiences that don't fit meaningful patterns are allowed to fade, effectively pruned from your memory system to keep it efficient and focused on what matters. This selective consolidation might explain why you can study many things during the day, but only some of them remain accessible later. Your sleeping brain essentially makes decisions about what's worth keeping, prioritizing emotionally significant experiences. Information you've marked as important through attention and rehearsal, and experiences that connect with your broader goals and knowledge structures. Dreams might reflect this prioritization process, focusing on material that your brain has tagged as worthy of consolidation. Interestingly, sleep appears to do more than just strengthen memories. It can also restructure them, finding hidden patterns and making connections that weren't apparent during initial learning. This might explain the phenomenon of insight after sleep. People often report that problems they couldn't solve before sleep suddenly become clear after sleeping on them. The famous chemist Auguste Kekulé claimed that the structure of the benzene molecule came to him in a dream. Musicians report discovering new ways to approach difficult passages after sleeping. The sleeping brain seems capable of reorganizing information in creative ways that lead to new understanding. This creative reorganization might occur because the neurochemical state of sleep, particularly REM sleep, allows for more flexible associations between memories. Without the constraints of focused, logical thinking imposed by an active prefrontal cortex, your brain can explore more unusual connections between ideas. Memories that wouldn't normally link during waking thought can combine during dreams, potentially generating novel insights or solutions. However, the relationship between dreams and memory isn't always straightforward. Many dreams don't seem to reflect recent learning at all. They pull from different periods of your life, combine memories in impossible ways, or feature completely invented scenarios. Also, you typically forget the vast majority of your dreams themselves, unless you wake during or immediately after them and make an effort to recall them. This presents a puzzle. If dreams are involved in memory consolidation, why are the dreams themselves so forgettable? One possibility is that dreams reflect multiple memory processes happening simultaneously. Some elements might represent memories being consolidated, while others represent memories being reorganized or even actively forgotten. The bizarre combinations in dreams might arise when the brain tests associations between memories, keeping connections that are useful and discarding those that aren't. The dreams you remember might be just the tip of an iceberg, conscious glimpses of much larger memory processing operations occurring beneath awareness. Another possibility is that memory consolidation happens through neural replay in the hippocampus and cortex, and dreams are a secondary phenomenon, a side effect of this neural activity rather than the mechanism itself. Your cortex might generate dream narratives as it responds to the memory-related signals coming from the hippocampus. But the actual consolidation work happens at a neural level below conscious experience. In this view, dreams are more like the shadow cast by memory consolidation than the consolidation process itself. Whatever the exact mechanism, the evidence overwhelmingly supports the conclusion that sleep, and probably REM sleep and dreaming, plays a crucial role in learning and memory. Pulling an all-nighter before an exam is not just tiring, it actively interferes with the memory consolidation processes that would help you retain what you studied. Getting adequate sleep, especially sleep-rich in both deep slow-wave sleep and REM sleep, is one of the most effective things you can do to enhance learning and memory. Your dreams, then, might be windows into the memory work your brain performs each night. When you dream about studying, about places you visited, about people you met, or about problems you grappled with during the day, you're witnessing your brain sorting through experiences, deciding what to keep, finding connections, and gradually building the organized knowledge structures that define what you know and who you are. Each night, as you dream, you're not just resting. You're learning, integrating, and becoming a slightly different version of yourself, shaped by the memories your sleeping brain chose to strengthen and the connections it chose to make. The strange logic of dream reality. One of the most striking features of dreams is how utterly convincing they feel while you're experiencing them. In the midst of a dream, even the most impossible events seem perfectly normal. You might fly through the air, speak with long-dead relatives, transform into someone else, or watch objects morph into completely different things, and none of this triggers the realization that you're dreaming. Only upon waking does the absurdity become obvious. Why does the dreaming mind accept impossibilities as real? The answer lies in the specific pattern of brain activity during normal REM sleep dreaming. The sensory and emotional processing regions of your brain remain highly active, generating vivid perceptions and feelings. But the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for critical thinking, reality testing, and logical analysis, shows dramatically reduced activity. It's as if your internal fact-checker has gone offline, leaving you unable to notice inconsistencies or question implausibilities. When you're awake, your prefrontal cortex constantly evaluates your experiences against your knowledge of how the world works. If something seems inconsistent, impossible, or doesn't match your expectations, this region flags it for attention. You notice when things don't make sense, when events don't follow logically, when the story you're experiencing has gaps or contradictions. This reality testing function is crucial for maintaining an accurate understanding of the world and distinguishing imagination from perception. During dreams, this function largely disappears. Without active reality testing, your brain accepts whatever arises in the dream without question. The deactivation of critical thinking regions allows dream narratives to flow freely, unconstrained by logic or physical possibility. Your dream self simply goes along with whatever happens, adapting to each new impossibility as if it were perfectly ordinary. This explains one of the paradoxes of dreaming. Within the dream, everything makes sense, even though from a waking perspective, nothing makes sense. You possess what's called single-mindedness in dreams, an acceptance of the current moment without reflection on contradictions or impossibilities. You don't think about whether what's happening is consistent with earlier parts of the dream or with your waking knowledge of reality. You simply experience each moment as it comes. The absence of critical thinking also affects your sense of self and identity within dreams. Normally, your prefrontal cortex maintains a stable sense of who you are, your autobiographical narrative, and the continuity of your identity across time. During dreams, this stable self-representation can become fluid. You might be yourself, but younger. Yourself, but with different abilities, or even someone else entirely. You might observe yourself from outside your body, watch yourself in third person, or experience conflicting identities within the same dream. These identity shifts would be deeply disturbing while awake, but during dreams, you accept them without question. Time perception also becomes strange during dreams. The normal sense of time flow that your prefrontal cortex maintains during waking largely disappears in dreams. Events can jump forward or backward without transition. You might experience elaborate sequences that seem to span hours or days but actually occur in minutes. The past and present can blend together. The temporal ordering that normally structures your experience becomes loose and unreliable. Another consequence of reduced prefrontal activity is impaired working memory during dreams. Working memory refers to your ability to hold information in mind temporarily while working with it. It's crucial for logical reasoning, planning, and connecting different pieces of information. During dreams, your working memory capacity appears reduced. This might explain why you often fail to notice dream inconsistencies even when they're obvious. By the time one scene transitions to another, you've already forgotten details from the previous scene that would reveal the impossibility of what's happening. The reduced working memory also affects dream narratives themselves. Dream plots often lack the careful construction and internal consistency of stories created while awake. They jump from scene to scene without clear transitions, drop plot threads without resolution, and introduce elements that contradict what came before. Your dreaming mind seems to create moment by moment, without the careful planning and monitoring that characterizes waking thought. Yet despite these deficits in logic and critical thinking, dreams possess their own kind of coherence. They follow emotional logic rather than rational logic. Events in dreams often make sense on an emotional or symbolic level, even when they're physically impossible. If you're anxious about a presentation, you might dream about being unprepared for a test, a logically different but emotionally similar scenario. The dream captures the feeling even if the details are wrong. Dreams also show sophisticated social and emotional understanding, even as they fail at logical consistency. Dream characters behave in psychologically plausible ways even in impossible situations. Social interactions in dreams often capture complex relationship dynamics with surprising accuracy. Your dreaming brain seems to retain emotional intelligence and social knowledge even as it loses logical reasoning. The sensory qualities of dreams are another striking feature. Dream experiences engage the same perceptual systems used for actual perception. Brain imaging studies show that dreaming about seeing activates the visual cortex in patterns similar to actually seeing. This is why dreams feel so real perceptually. The colors, shapes, movements, and spatial relationships in dreams are processed by the same neural machinery that processes waking vision, creating experiences that are essentially indistinguishable from real perception while they're occurring. However, there are some sensory differences between dreams and waking. Dreams are predominantly visual, with sound playing a secondary role. Smells, tastes, and physical sensations are relatively rare in dreams compared to waking experience. This might relate to which sensory systems remain active during sleep. Vision is entirely internally generated during dreams, while the other senses are more dependent on actual sensory input, which is largely absent during sleep. The emotional intensity of dreams can match or exceed waking emotions. Because the amygdala and other emotional processing regions are highly active during REM sleep, you can experience profound fear, joy, sadness, or love in dreams. These emotions feel completely real because they are real. Your emotional systems are actually generating these feelings, even if the scenarios triggering them are imaginary. All of these features combine to create the strange reality of dreams, a world that is simultaneously convincing and absurd, emotionally real and logically impossible, richly detailed, and maddeningly inconsistent. Dreams reveal how much your waking sense of reality depends on the active participation of your prefrontal cortex. When this region goes offline during sleep, the other parts of your brain continue creating experiences, but without the critical oversight that normally keeps those experiences tethered to reality. What emerges is a kind of untethered consciousness, free to explore without boundaries, but also unable to recognize its own unreality until the prefrontal cortex wakes up and imposes order once again. Lucid dreaming. Consciousness within sleep. For most people, most of the time, dreams unfold without awareness that they're dreams. But sometimes something remarkable happens. In the midst of a dream, a shift occurs, and suddenly you realize, this is a dream. This moment of recognition, when consciousness awakens within the dream state, is called lucid dreaming, and it represents one of the most fascinating phenomena in the study of sleep and consciousness. Lucid dreams typically occur during REM sleep, the same stage where ordinary, vivid dreams happen. But the brain activity during lucid dreaming shows a distinctive pattern that sets it apart from regular dreams. Studies using electroencephalography and functional brain imaging have revealed that during lucid dreams, certain frontal regions of the brain that are normally deactivated during regular REM sleep show increased activity. Specifically, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, anterior prefrontal cortex, and regions of the parietal cortex associated with self-awareness and metacognition become more active. This reactivation of frontal brain regions explains the defining features of lucid dreams. With the prefrontal cortex coming partially back online, you regain capacities that are normally absent during dreams. You can think critically about your experience, recognize inconsistencies, maintain working memory, and sometimes exert voluntary control over dream content. You retain self-awareness and can reflect on the fact that you're dreaming. In essence, lucid dreaming represents a hybrid state where the brain combines features of both sleeping and waking consciousness. One of the most fascinating aspects of lucid dreaming research involves how scientists can objectively verify that someone is lucid during sleep. Since lucid dreamers can think rationally while remaining asleep, researchers have developed a communication method based on eye movements. Remember that during REM sleep, the muscles of your body are paralyzed, but your eye muscles remain active. Lucid dreamers use this fact to signal their state to researchers. Before falling asleep, a lucid dreaming research participant learns a specific pattern of eye movements, like moving their eyes left, right, in a predetermined sequence. Once they become lucid during sleep, they perform this eye signal. The movements are captured by electrodes recording their eye activity, providing objective evidence that they were consciously aware during sleep, while all other physiological measures confirm they were indeed asleep. This eye signaling technique has opened up remarkable possibilities for studying the sleeping mind from within. Using this communication method, researchers have asked lucid dreamers to perform various tasks during dreams and signal when they begin and end. These studies have revealed surprising findings about dream time and dream physics. For instance, when lucid dreamers perform a counting task or a motor task in a dream and time it with eye signals, the duration in the dream closely matches the time that passes in the real world. This suggests that dream time, at least during lucid dreams, is not as distorted as people sometimes believe based on their subjective impressions upon waking. Brain imaging studies during lucid dreaming have provided insights into how the sleeping brain can regain conscious awareness. One consistent finding is that lucid dreaming is associated with increased activity in the precuneus and parietal cortex, regions involved in self-reflection and distinguishing self from other. These regions typically show reduced activity during normal REM sleep, and their reactivation during lucid dreams might underlie the restoration of self-awareness and metacognitive ability. Another striking finding involves gamma wave activity, the fastest brain waves, with frequencies typically between 30 and 100 Hz. During normal waking consciousness, gamma waves are associated with focused attention, working memory, and conscious awareness. During regular, non-lucid dreams, gamma activity is relatively low. But during lucid dreams, researchers have observed significant increases in gamma wave activity, particularly in frontal regions. This surge in high-frequency brain activity might be the neural signature of consciousness re-emerging within sleep. Some scientists have attempted to induce lucid dreams experimentally using various techniques. One promising approach involves transcranial electrical stimulation, where weak electrical currents are applied to the scalp during REM sleep. Studies have shown that stimulating the frontal cortex with currents in the gamma frequency range can sometimes trigger lucid dreams. The external stimulation seems to nudge the frontal cortex toward a more wake-like state while the person remains asleep, facilitating the shift into lucidity. Other methods for inducing lucid dreams don't require fancy equipment. Reality testing, where you regularly question whether you're dreaming while awake, can eventually lead you to perform the same reality checks during dreams, triggering lucidity. The mnemonic induction of lucid dreams technique involves setting an intention to recognize that you're dreaming before falling asleep, and imagining yourself becoming lucid. Some people use external cues, like certain sounds or lights delivered during REM sleep, which they've learned to associate with the recognition that they're dreaming. Certain medications that affect neurotransmitter systems have also been explored as lucid dream aids. Galantamine, a cholinesterase inhibitor that increases acetylcholine levels, has shown promise in increasing lucid dream frequency when taken during specific points in the sleep cycle. The heightened cholinergic activity might facilitate the partial reactivation of frontal regions needed for lucidity. What can people do in lucid dreams? The possibilities vary widely, depending on the stability of the lucid state and individual skill. Some lucid dreamers report being able to fly, teleport, or transform their dream environment at will. Others use lucid dreams for creative exploration, problem-solving, or practicing real-world skills. Musicians have reported rehearsing pieces during lucid dreams. Athletes practice techniques. Some people use lucid dreams for wish fulfillment, creating experiences impossible in waking life, like visiting fantastical places or meeting deceased loved ones. The therapeutic potential of lucid dreaming has garnered increasing attention. For people suffering from recurring nightmares, particularly those associated with post-traumatic stress disorder. Lucid dreaming might offer a way to take control of frightening dream content. If someone can become lucid during a nightmare, they might be able to alter the dream, confront dream threats, or simply wake themselves up. Some studies have shown that training nightmare sufferers in lucid dreaming techniques can reduce nightmare frequency and intensity. However, lucid dreaming is not without potential downsides. Some people report that trying to induce lucid dreams disrupts their sleep quality. The partial reactivation of wake-like brain activity during REM might interfere with the restorative functions that sleep normally provides. There are also reports of false awakenings, where people think they've woken up but are still dreaming, which can be confusing and sometimes distressing. Sleep paralysis, where someone wakes up but their muscles remain temporarily paralyzed, can also occur more frequently in people actively pursuing lucid dreams. The experience of lucid dreaming also raises profound questions about the nature of consciousness. If you can be fully conscious and aware while your brain is in a sleep state, what does that tell us about the relationship between consciousness and brain activity? Lucid dreaming seems to demonstrate that consciousness is not simply absent during sleep, but rather reorganized in ways that usually preclude self-awareness. The fact that frontal reactivation can restore awareness during sleep suggests that consciousness depends more on the specific pattern of the brain activity than on absolute levels of arousal. Some experienced lucid dreamers report developing greater skill over time, learning to stabilize lucid states, control dream content more effectively, and even maintain awareness through dream transitions or across multiple dreams in a single night. A few individuals claim to have lucid awareness during non-REM sleep as well, though these reports are more difficult to verify objectively. The extent to which lucid dreaming can be developed as a skill and what limits might exist on this ability remain active areas of investigation. For most people, lucid dreams occur rarely and spontaneously, but the phenomenon demonstrates something important about the flexibility of consciousness and the complex interplay between different brain systems during sleep. Lucid dreaming reveals that the boundary between sleeping and waking consciousness is not absolute, but rather a continuum, and that under certain conditions, features of waking awareness can exist within the dream state. It's a reminder that consciousness is stranger and more multifaceted than we might assume from our ordinary waking experience. Nightmares and sleep disorders. While dreams can be entertaining, insightful, or emotionally healing, they can also be terrifying. Nightmares are disturbing dreams that provoke strong negative emotions like fear, anxiety, sadness, or disgust. Most people experience occasional nightmares, but for some individuals, nightmares become frequent enough to disrupt sleep and impact daytime functioning. Understanding the neuroscience of nightmares and related sleep disorders reveals another dimension of what happens in your brain at night. Nightmares most commonly occur during REM sleep, particularly in the later part of the night when REM periods are longest and most intense. During nightmares, the amygdala, your brain's fear center, shows extremely high activity. The emotional intensity of nightmares can actually exceed what you typically experience during waking hours, because the prefrontal cortex, which normally modulates and regulates emotional responses, is largely offline during REM sleep. Without this emotional break, fear and anxiety can escalate without constraint. Common nightmare themes include being chased, falling, being attacked, facing natural disasters, losing loved ones, or experiencing embarrassment or failure. These themes appear consistently across cultures and throughout history, suggesting they may relate to fundamental human concerns and vulnerabilities. From an evolutionary perspective, nightmares might represent the threat simulation system gone into overdrive, creating frightening scenarios that, while unpleasant, might serve to prepare you for real dangers. However, when nightmares become frequent or repetitive, they can indicate underlying problems. Stress, anxiety, trauma, certain medications, sleep deprivation, and various mental health conditions can all increase nightmare frequency. Post-traumatic stress disorder is particularly associated with recurring nightmares that replay or symbolically represent traumatic experiences. In these cases, the normal emotional processing function of dreams appears to malfunction. Instead of gradually reducing the emotional charge of traumatic memories, the nightmares keep reactivating the trauma without resolution. The persistence of traumatic nightmares might relate to failed fear extinction, a process by which repeated safe exposure to feared stimuli reduces fear responses. During normal dreaming, fear-inducing scenarios might be presented in a context where the physiological fear response is dampened by low norepinephrine levels, allowing gradual desensitization. But if the emotional intensity is too high or the trauma too severe, this process might fail, leading to repetitive nightmares that reinforce rather than reduce fear. One particularly unsettling sleep phenomenon related to REM sleep is sleep paralysis. This occurs when you wake up during or just after a REM period, becoming conscious while the muscle paralysis that normally prevents you from acting out dreams is still in effect. You find yourself awake, aware of your surroundings, but completely unable to move or speak. This state often lasts only seconds or minutes, but it can be extremely frightening, especially because sleep paralysis is frequently accompanied by hallucinations. The hallucinations during sleep paralysis often have a characteristic quality. Many people report sensing a presence in the room, feeling pressure on their chest, seeing shadowy figures, or experiencing the sensation that something is approaching or threatening them. These hallucinations likely arise because parts of your brain have woken up, while other parts remain in the REM state. The dream generation systems are still active, creating imagery and sensations, but now you're conscious enough to experience them as something happening in your real environment rather than as clearly separate dreams. The explanation for the typically threatening nature of sleep paralysis hallucinations might relate to the high amygdala activity characteristic of REM sleep. When you wake into paralysis with elevated fear system activation, your brain might interpret the strange paralyzed state as a sign of danger, generating threat-related perceptions consistent with this aroused state. Sleep paralysis is more common in people with irregular sleep schedules, sleep deprivation, and anxiety. And while deeply unpleasant, it's not physically dangerous. A different and potentially more serious REM-related disorder is REM sleep behavior disorder. In this condition, the normal paralysis that should occur during REM sleep fails to engage properly. People with this disorder physically act out their dreams, sometimes violently. They might punch, kick, shout, or leap out of bed in response to dream content, potentially injuring themselves or bed partners. Unlike sleepwalking, which occurs during non-REM sleep. REM behavior disorder happens during REM periods and is often associated with intense, action-filled dreams. The neural basis of REM behavior disorder involves dysfunction in the brainstem circuits that normally inhibit motor activity during REM. Specific regions in the pons, the middle section of the brainstem, are responsible for sending signals that paralyze voluntary muscles during REM. When these circuits are damaged or fail to function properly, the motor signals generated by dream content can actually reach the muscles and be executed. This disorder is concerning not only because of injury risk, but also because it can be an early sign of neurodegenerative conditions like Parkinson's disease or Lewy body dementia. The same brain regions affected in REM behavior disorder are often among the first to show pathology in these conditions. Treatment options for nightmare disorders and related conditions vary depending on the underlying cause. For nightmares related to stress or anxiety, addressing the source of stress and practicing good sleep hygiene often helps. Imagery rehearsal therapy, where people consciously reimagine their nightmares with different, less frightening outcomes while awake, has shown effectiveness in reducing nightmare frequency. This technique might work by providing a template for healthier emotional processing during sleep. For trauma-related nightmares, more intensive trauma-focused therapy is often necessary. Prolonged exposure therapy and eye movement desensitization and reprocessing can help process traumatic memories more effectively, which often leads to reduction in trauma nightmares. Some medications, particularly certain blood pressure medications that affect norepinephrine signaling, have shown promise in reducing nightmare frequency in PTSD patients. For REM behavior disorder, treatment usually focuses on safety measures and sometimes medications that help restore proper REM paralysis. For sleep paralysis, improving sleep hygiene, ensuring adequate sleep duration, and addressing any underlying sleep disorders often reduces frequency. The existence of nightmare disorders and REM-related problems reminds us that the complex systems governing sleep and dreams don't always function perfectly. When these systems malfunction, the consequences can range from merely unpleasant to genuinely dangerous. But studying these disorders also provides insights into how dreaming normally works. By understanding what happens when the system breaks down, researchers gain clues about the mechanisms underlying healthy dreaming and the purposes these mechanisms serve. The darkness of nightmares paradoxically illuminates the light of dreams across the lifespan. The dreams you experience now are not the same as the dreams you had as a child, nor will they be the same as the dreams you'll have in older age. Both the quantity and quality of dreaming change substantially across the lifespan, and these changes offer insights into the relationship between dreaming, brain development, and cognitive function. Newborn infants spend approximately 50% of their sleep time in REM sleep, far more than adults. Some researchers suggest that even in the womb, fetuses experience REM-like states. This early predominance of REM sleep has led to theories about its role in brain development. During these early months and years, the brain is growing rapidly, forming new connections at an extraordinary rate, and organizing itself into functional networks. The intense neural activity during REM sleep might support this developmental process, strengthening important connections and pruning unnecessary ones. What do infants dream about? This question is difficult to answer since babies can't report their experiences. But given that dreaming appears to draw heavily on memories and experiences, infant dreams are probably quite different from adult dreams. Without extensive memory stores or complex conceptual knowledge, infant dreams might consist of simpler sensory experiences, emotional states, and gradually accumulating impressions of faces, sounds, and physical sensations. As the brain develops and memory systems mature, dreams would presumably become more elaborate and narrative in structure. Young children typically report shorter, simpler dreams than adults. Their dreams often feature animals, particularly large or threatening animals, more frequently than adult dreams do. This might reflect children's fascination with animals, their relative powerlessness compared to the adult world, or an evolutionary legacy where threats from animals were more salient in childhood. As children develop through the preschool and elementary school years, their dreams gradually become longer, more story-like, and more self-centered, with the dreamer becoming a more active participant rather than just an observer. The changing content and structure of children's dreams parallels cognitive development in waking life. As children develop better memory, more sophisticated language, more complex social understanding, and stronger self-concepts, these advances appear reflected in their dream life. Dream development seems to follow cognitive development, supporting the view that dreams draw on the same cognitive systems used during waking thought. During adolescence, several changes occur in both sleep patterns and dreaming. The total time spent in REM sleep continues to decline from the high levels of early childhood, though it remains higher than it will be in adulthood. Sleep timing shifts, with teenagers showing a natural tendency toward later sleep and wake times. Dream content during adolescence shows increased social elements, emotional intensity, and themes related to identity and peer relationships, reflecting the central developmental concerns of this period. In adulthood, sleep architecture stabilizes into the familiar pattern of roughly 20 to 25% REM sleep, with about 4 to 5 REM periods per night. Adult dreams show tremendous individual variation in content, but typically incorporate elements from daily life, personal concerns, and memories from different time periods. Adults often report dreams related to work, relationships, and responsibilities, with the specific content shaped by individual circumstances and preoccupations. However, even in adulthood, dreaming changes somewhat with age. Studies comparing young adults with middle-aged and older adults have found subtle shifts in dream content. Older adults often report somewhat shorter dreams with less vivid imagery, less intense emotions, and more static scenes, compared to the dynamic, action-filled dreams common in younger people. These changes might reflect overall changes in cognitive function and brain activity that occur with aging. The aging brain shows several changes that affect sleep and dreaming. The overall amount of time spent in REM sleep continues to decrease gradually through adulthood. More strikingly, deep slow-wave sleep decreases significantly with age. Many older adults have very little or no slow-wave sleep at all. Sleep also becomes more fragmented, with more frequent awakenings throughout the night. These changes in sleep architecture likely reflect underlying changes in the brain systems that generate and regulate sleep. Despite getting less REM sleep, older adults often report remembering fewer dreams than when they were younger. This might simply reflect the reduced time spent in REM, but it could also relate to age-related changes in memory systems. The ability to recall dreams depends on memory consolidation processes that are themselves affected by aging. Alternatively, reduced dream recall might relate to changes in how and when older adults wake from sleep. Interestingly, while dream recall may decrease with age, the dreams that older adults do remember often incorporate memories from across their entire lifespan. There's sometimes an increase in dreams featuring people and events from youth or young adulthood, possibly reflecting the reminiscence bump, a tendency for older adults to have particularly strong memories of experiences from their teenage years and 20s. Throughout all these life stages, the relationship between REM sleep quantity and brain plasticity holds. Periods of rapid learning, intense brain activity, and major developmental changes are associated with higher REM sleep requirements. As the brain matures and becomes more stable, less REM sleep appears necessary. This pattern suggests that one function of REM sleep and dreaming is to support neural plasticity, the brain's ability to change and reorganize itself in response to experience. The journey of dreaming across a lifetime mirrors the journey of the brain itself. From the intense, chaotic activity of the developing infant brain to the more organized but less flexible patterns of the aging brain, dreams track our cognitive evolution. They are both shaped by who we are at each stage of life and potentially help shape who we become. Every dream is an artifact of a particular moment in your neural development, a snapshot of the ever-changing landscape of consciousness that defines your journey through time. The content of our dreams. If you kept a dream journal for a year, recording every dream you could remember, certain patterns would begin to emerge. Some settings, themes, emotions, and scenarios would appear repeatedly, while others would show up rarely or never. The content of dreams, while highly variable and personal, also shows striking consistencies both within individuals and across cultures. One of the most comprehensive studies of dream content analyzed thousands of dream reports collected from people of different ages and cultures. The findings revealed several universal features. Most dreams occur in indoor settings, typically familiar places like homes, schools, or workplaces, though the specific details often don't match real locations exactly. Outdoor settings appear as well, including streets, parks, and natural landscapes. Completely fantastical or impossible settings are actually less common than you might expect, given how bizarre dreams can be in other respects. Dream characters are typically people you know or have known, though their identities may shift or combine in impossible ways. Friends, family members, colleagues, and acquaintances all make regular appearances. Strangers also populate dreams, though less frequently. Interestingly, famous people rarely appear in dreams unless you have a personal connection to them, or they've been particularly salient in your recent waking experience. When dream characters do strange things or act out of character, dreamers typically accept these behaviors without question, at least until they wake. Emotions in dreams tend toward the negative end of the spectrum more than positive. Anxiety and apprehension are the most common dream emotions, followed by fear. Happiness and excitement appear as well, but less frequently than negative emotions. This negative bias might relate to the threat simulation hypothesis, with dreams focusing on potential problems and dangers as a form of emotional rehearsal. It might also reflect the emotional processing function of sleep, with dreams providing an opportunity to work through difficult feelings that accumulated during the day. Common dream themes appear across cultures and throughout recorded history. Being chased or pursued is one of the most frequently reported dream scenarios. Falling or losing control is another extremely common theme. Dreams of being unprepared for a test or important event, being unable to find a toilet when needed, teeth falling out, or flying are so common they've become cultural cliches. The near universality of these themes suggests they tap into fundamental human concerns and anxieties. However, dream content is also deeply personal and shaped by individual experiences and concerns. People dream about their own lives, their relationships, their work, and their worries. The specific details of dreams reflect personal knowledge and memory. Someone who has never seen snow won't dream about snow. Someone who has never experienced particular social situations won't dream scenarios involving those situations. Dreams draw their raw materials from the dreamer's own experience and knowledge. There's often a continuity between waking concerns and dream themes, though the relationship is usually indirect rather than literal. If you're stressed about a deadline, you might dream about being late or unprepared, but not necessarily about the specific project causing stress. If you're navigating relationship difficulties, you might dream about social conflicts or feeling isolated, but not necessarily replay the actual arguments you had. Dreams seem to capture the emotional essence or thematic core of waking concerns while changing the surface details. Recent experiences influence dream content more strongly than distant experiences, a phenomenon called the day residue effect. If something significant happened yesterday, elements of that experience are likely to appear in tonight's dreams. However, dreams don't simply replay recent events. They typically incorporate fragments from recent experiences, combining them with memories from other time periods and invented elements in ways that create novel scenarios. There's also evidence for what's been called the dream lag effect, where experiences from about a week ago show up in dreams more frequently than experiences from the intermediate days. The reasons for this pattern aren't entirely clear, but it might relate to memory consolidation processes that operate across multiple nights, with experiences being reactivated at specific intervals as they're integrated into long-term memory. Certain types of waking experiences are more likely to appear in dreams than others. Emotionally significant events, personal concerns, unresolved problems, and novel experiences all have higher probabilities of dream incorporation. Repetitive, emotionally neutral activities are less likely to directly appear in dreams, though they might influence dream content in more subtle ways. The selection process by which certain experiences are incorporated into dreams while others aren't remains somewhat mysterious, but emotional salience and personal relevance appear to be key factors. Some dreams are remarkably mundane, simply depicting ordinary activities in familiar settings with nothing particularly strange or dramatic happening. These dreams might represent the brain processing routine experiences and memories, or they might occur during lighter sleep stages with different neural activity patterns than the most vivid REM dreams. Other dreams are spectacularly bizarre, featuring impossible physics, morphing entities, contradictory scenarios, and surreal imagery that would seem at home in a Salvador Dali painting. The visual imagery in dreams, when analyzed carefully, shows interesting patterns. Colors appear in most dreams, though some people report dreaming in black and white. Faces are common and often highly detailed, reflecting the importance of face processing in human cognition. Movement and action sequences appear frequently. Spatial relationships and navigation through dream environments are major components of many dreams. These patterns reflect the types of information your visual system is designed to process and the aspects of visual experience that are most behaviorally relevant. Sound in dreams is less prominent than vision, but still present. People hear conversations, music, environmental sounds, and sometimes their own voice narrating or commenting. Other sensory modalities are surprisingly rare. Touch, taste, smell, and pain are less common in dreams than in waking experience, perhaps because these senses depend more directly on actual sensory input from the body, which is reduced during sleep. Recurring dreams, where essentially the same dream or dream scenario repeats across multiple nights or even years, are reported by many people. These often have anxiety-related themes and may persist until whatever psychological issue they represent is resolved. The repetition suggests that the dream is unsuccessfully attempting to process or work through something, repeatedly reactivating the same concerns without achieving resolution. Understanding dream content reveals that dreams are not random hallucinations, but structured experiences drawing on personal knowledge, memory, and emotion. They reflect who you are, what concerns you, and what your brain considers important enough to process during sleep. While the specific imagery and scenarios can be bizarre, the underlying themes and emotional cores of dreams are deeply connected to your waking life, making dreams simultaneously strange and personal, alien and intimate. Closing the ongoing mystery. As we reach the end of this journey through the science of sleep and dreams, it's worth reflecting on how much remains mysterious. We've explored the neural architecture that supports dreaming, the chemical changes that occur during REM sleep, the leading theories about why we dream, and the fascinating variations in dreams across the lifespan. Yet, for all this knowledge, fundamental questions remain unanswered. We still don't know with certainty why we dream. Multiple theories offer compelling explanations, each supported by evidence, but no single theory has emerged as definitively correct. It's quite possible that dreams serve multiple functions simultaneously, that different dreams emphasize different purposes, or that dreaming is a complex phenomenon that can't be reduced to a single explanation. The question, why do we dream, might be like asking, why does the ocean move? The answer involves tides, waves, currents, and countless other processes all occurring at once. We don't fully understand how the brain constructs dream narratives. How does your sleeping brain take fragments of memory, emotion, and sensation and weave them into stories, however bizarre? What determines which elements combine with which others? Why do some themes appear repeatedly while others never surface? The creative process underlying dream construction remains largely mysterious. a kind of unconscious authorship that generates nightly content without deliberate effort or conscious control. We can't explain why most dreams are forgotten. The rapid fading of dream memories is one of the most puzzling aspects of dreaming. Given that the hippocampus remains active during REM sleep, and other memory-forming brain regions are engaged. Why are dreams so difficult to remember? Why can a vivid, emotionally intense dream that seemed to last hours evaporate within seconds of waking unless you immediately focus on recalling it? The neuroscience of dream forgetting remains poorly understood. We don't know whether animals experience dreams the way humans do. Many mammals show REM sleep with the same physiological markers seen in humans, and some animals show movements during sleep that suggest they're acting out behaviors from waking life. But subjective experience can't be directly accessed in non-human animals. Do dogs dream of chasing? Do cats dream of hunting? Do elephants dream of their families? We can observe their sleeping brains and guess, but the inner experience remains inaccessible to us. We can't predict specific dream content with any precision. While we know that recent experiences influence dreams and that personal concerns shape dream themes, we can't look at someone's waking life and predict exactly what they'll dream about on a given night. Dreams emerge from complex interactions among memory systems, emotional processing, and neural activation patterns in ways that resist simple prediction. Each dream is a unique event, generated by a specific brain at a specific moment in time. We don't fully understand why some people rarely remember dreams while others recall them frequently. Individual differences in dream recall are substantial and stable across time. Some people remember multiple dreams every night, while others report dreaming rarely or never, despite almost certainly dreaming during REM periods like everyone else. The factors determining these differences in recall remain unclear. Brain structure, neurotransmitter levels, personality traits, and sleep patterns all likely play roles. But we can't yet explain the full range of variation in dream recall. We're still discovering new findings that challenge our existing understanding. Recent research has suggested that some dreaming might occur during non-REM sleep stages, not just during REM. Lucid dreaming research continues to reveal new possibilities for conscious awareness during sleep. Studies of brain connectivity during dreaming are beginning to show complex patterns of communication between different brain regions that we're only starting to decode. The field of dream science is far from complete. It remains a frontier of neuroscience, a place where much has been learned, but much more awaits discovery. Perhaps this ongoing mystery is appropriate. Dreams have captivated human imagination for thousands of years, precisely because they're mysterious. They offer a nightly reminder that consciousness is stranger and richer than we usually assume from our ordinary waking experience. They demonstrate that your brain can create entire worlds, complete with sights, sounds, emotions, and stories, entirely from within. They show that the boundary between reality and imagination is more permeable than it seems. Every night, as you close your eyes and drift into sleep, your brain begins its remarkable journey through sleep stages, eventually arriving at those REM periods when dreams flourish. Neurons fire in elaborate patterns. Neurotransmitters wash through your brain in shifting concentrations. Your visual cortex generates imagery without any light entering your eyes. Your amygdala processes emotions in a landscape disconnected from reality. Your hippocampus replays memories and integrates new experiences with old knowledge. And somewhere in all this neural activity, you experience dreams, strange and vivid, impossible and compelling. These dreams might be helping you consolidate memories, processing emotions, simulating threats, defending neural territory, or serving purposes we haven't yet imagined. They might be doing all of these things at once. Whatever their function, they're a fundamental part of human experience, as universal as breathing or thinking or feeling. You've spent years of your life dreaming, and you'll spend years more. Each dream is unique, a brief existence that lives and dies in the space of minutes, leaving at most a fading trace in memory. As we close this exploration, I want to thank you for joining me on this journey through the neuroscience of dreams. If you found this exploration meaningful, I hope you'll like this video and subscribe to Sleepy Answers. Your support helps create more of these gentle journeys through science and wonder. And if you have dreams you'd like to share, or questions about anything we've explored tonight, please leave a comment. I love hearing from fellow travelers in this space where science meets curiosity. But more importantly, I hope that tonight, and in the nights to come, you'll pay a little more attention to your dreams. Perhaps you'll keep a notebook by your bed and try to capture them before they fade. Perhaps you'll notice the themes that repeat, the emotions that surface, the bizarre logic that governs your sleeping mind. Perhaps you'll appreciate the remarkable fact that your brain creates these experiences every single night, an internal theater showing films written, directed, and performed entirely within your skull. Now it's time to rest. Let your thoughts settle like leaves drifting to the ground. Let your muscles release their tension, sinking deeper into softness. Let your breathing slow, becoming a gentle rhythm that carries you towards sleep. Tonight, when you dream, remember that you're participating in one of nature's most beautiful mysteries. Your brain will work through the day's experiences, sort through emotions, strengthen memories, and weave it all into the strange stories we call dreams. You don't need to understand it fully to experience it. You don't need to remember every dream to benefit from dreaming. You just need to sleep, to allow your brain to do what evolution designed it to do, to trust the ancient processes that have served humanity for hundreds of thousands of years. So let go now. Release the questions and the explanations. Let the mystery remain mysterious. Let sleep come when it's ready. And let your dreams, whatever they may bring, unfold in the darkness behind your eyes like flowers blooming in a hidden garden that exists only for you. Sleep well. Dream deeply. And may you wake tomorrow refreshed, carrying within you the subtle gifts that dreams provide, even when you can't remember exactly what those dreams contained. Good night.